My name is Alina, and I never thought I'd be sitting here confessing to strangers on the internet about how my marriage crumbled in a single night. But sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones you need to let air out, the ones you need to tell, even if your voice shakes. I am 32 years old, and I thought I had built a life with a man who saw me, who valued me, who would never doubt me. But I was wrong, and the way I found out still cuts deeper than any blade. It started with a lie wrapped in a sweet, trembling voice delivered with teary eyes and a smirk she tried to hide. His daughter. She was 20, spoiled, used to getting her way, used to watching her father bend the world around her whims. And that night she looked him dead in the eyes and said, "She's lying, Dad. She's always hated me." Her words slithered through the room like smoke, suffocating me before I even had a chance to defend myself. I stood there frozen, staring at her, my mind scrambling to piece together what she was even accusing me of. But before I could speak, I saw it, the shift in his eyes. My husband's eyes. The man I had stood beside for years, the man I thought knew me better than anyone else. He was already doubting me. The living room light was too bright, burning against my skin. The silence between us was unbearable, stretching into a chasm I couldn't cross. Finally, his voice broke it. Steady. Cold. "Alina, just pack your things. I can't do this anymore." My whole body trembled. "What are you saying? You're throwing me out because she told you something." But he didn't answer me. His gaze was locked on her. His daughter, the same unconditional love in his eyes that he used to look at me with. That was the moment my heart cracked open. I wasn't his partner anymore. I wasn't his choice. I wasn't even considered worthy of the truth. I packed in silence. Every sweater folded felt like a funeral. Every pair of shoes slipped into the suitcase felt like another betrayal stitched into leather. He didn't ask me to explain. He didn't give me the chance to defend myself. He just stood there letting her smirk behind him, her arms crossed in triumph. When the door slammed behind me, the night air was sharp and icy, cutting against my face. I stood there with my suitcase in hand, staring at the home I had built, the life I had poured myself into, and realized it wasn't mine anymore. It never really had been. It belonged to her, the daughter who had whispered poison, and to him who drank it willingly. I spent the first week sleeping in a friend's spare room. Each night I lay on that narrow mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over again in my mind. How could years of love collapse in a single breath? Every time my phone lit up, I hoped stupidly that it was him realizing his mistake, begging for forgiveness. But it never was. Instead, what reached me were her posts on social media. Mocking captions, sly digs, words written for me to see. Some women never learn their place. She wanted me broken. And for a moment I was. I cried until my body ached. I felt like a ghost floating outside of the life I had once lived. But pain has a strange way of sharpening you. The more I replayed that night, the more I realized it wasn't just her lie that destroyed me. It was his choice to believe it, his silence, his betrayal. By the second week, something inside me shifted. The woman who begged for love, who tried to prove her worth, had died the night he shut the door. What was left was cold, steady, determined. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even desperate. I was resolved. I pulled out the box of documents I had kept safe for years. Financial papers, property records, proof of my contributions to everything we had built together. He thought I would leave with nothing. He thought I would disappear quietly. But he underestimated me. That was the week I started planning. I spent long nights at the kitchen table of my friend's apartment, papers spread out like puzzle pieces. My hands shook as I reread old contracts, bank statements, receipts, all the evidence of what I had poured into that marriage. The house deed bore my name alongside his. The investments that had doubled in value were traced back to my contributions. Even the business he claimed was solely his had my signature buried in the foundation. I wasn't just a wife, I was a builder. And if he thought he could erase me with one lie, he had no idea who he was dealing with. But this wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. I had been humiliated, discarded, treated like nothing. And deep inside me, rage simmered like an underground fire, quiet but unstoppable. I hired a lawyer. A woman named Claire, sharp-eyed and unflinching, the kind of person who didn't waste words. When I told her what happened, she didn't gasp or pity me. She leaned forward, her voice calm and precise. He threw you out because of her lies. Fine. Let's make sure the truth tears him down. Her certainty steadied me. For the first time since that night, I felt like maybe I wasn't powerless. Maybe I was finally taking the pen back to write the ending of this story. The first divorce hearing was surreal. I sat on one side of the courtroom, he on the other. His daughter sat behind him, arms crossed, smirk painted on her face, like victory was already hers. My heart raced, but I kept my chin high. Claire laid out the opening statement like it was a blade, calm, lethal, undeniable. She spoke of contributions, of partnership, of betrayal. And when she said my client was discarded not because of wrongdoing, but because of a lie, I felt the words vibrate through me. He tried to avoid my gaze, but when our eyes met, I saw it, the flicker of discomfort, the shadow of doubt. He had expected me to vanish quietly, maybe cry in some corner of the world he no longer cared about. He hadn't expected me to fight. The evidence stacked against him like bricks. The bank records, the investments, the house. Every line showed that I wasn't just an accessory to his life. I was an architect of it. Claire pressed harder, her voice slicing through his excuses. He stammered, shifted, his mask of confidence slipping. But the most painful blow came when Claire introduced the screenshots. His daughter's posts, her mocking captions, her sly words, each one displayed on the screen for the court to see. Some women never learn their place. Gasps echoed through the room. His daughter's smirk faltered for the first time. He tried to object, to claim irrelevance, but Claire was relentless. This shows motive. This shows the pattern of manipulation. This shows who whispered lies into his ear. I should have felt triumph, but instead I felt something heavier. The weight of all the years I had given him, the love I had poured into a man who so easily turned against me. Grief burned hotter than anger. When the session ended, I walked out into the cold air, my body trembling. Not from fear, but from release. I had faced him. I had looked into the eyes of the man who betrayed me and spoken the truth. That night, lying in bed, I whispered to myself, "You're not his victim anymore. You're your own savior." And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. But I knew the fight wasn't over. Divorce was a battlefield, and battles are won piece by piece, day by day. The daughter wasn't finished. He wasn't finished. They would come at me harder. And I would be ready. The weeks that followed were a blur of depositions, paperwork, and sleepless nights. Every time my phone buzzed with a new email from Claire, my stomach tightened. Evidence, counterclaims, witness statements, it all piled up like storm clouds, each one threatening to break. But I forced myself to stay steady. I had already survived being thrown out of my own home with nothing but a suitcase and shattered pride. What more could they take from me? His daughter tried to smear me at every turn. In her statements, she painted herself as the victim, claiming I had always been jealous of her, that I tried to drive a wedge between father and daughter. Her lies dripped with innocence, every word rehearsed, every tear perfectly timed. I wanted to scream in that sterile conference room, to rip the mask from her face and show the world the venom beneath. But Claire pressed her lips into a thin line and whispered to me, "Let her speak. Lies unravel faster than truth needs to." And unravel they did, because for every sweet lie she spun, we had receipts. Bank transfers showing her father had funneled money into her accounts, money she claimed never existed. Screenshots of her mocking messages to friends, laughing about how easy it was to turn him against me. And then came the voicemail. A neighbor had overheard her bragging one night after a party, her voice slurred but clear. "He believes everything I say. I told him she was toxic, and now she's gone. The house is mine. All of it is mine." When the audio played in court, the silence was suffocating. My husband's face drained of color, his eyes flicking toward her in disbelief. Her mask cracked, panic rising in her expression. For a brief moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. Because as much as she had manipulated him, he had chosen to believe her. He had chosen to throw me out instead of standing by me. Betrayal isn't just about the liar, it's about the person who listens. The turning point came when Claire produced the property records. Line by line, she traced the investments back to me. The down payment I had covered when he couldn't. The renovations I had paid for from my own savings. The countless bills I had handled when his business was running dry. Every document was a testament to the years I had been more than a wife. I had been a partner, a provider, a builder, and he had discarded me like an afterthought. The judge's expression hardened. I saw it in his eyes, sympathy, yes, but also recognition of the truth. My husband shifted in his seat, his jaw tight, his pride cracking under the weight of undeniable evidence. His daughter whispered furiously in his ear, her voice sharp, but he didn't look at her. Not anymore. When the session ended, I walked past them without a word. She glared at me, hatred burning in her eyes, while he just stared down at his hands, silent. That silence was louder than any insult he had ever thrown at me. It was the silence of a man realizing he had chosen wrong. That night, I went home to my small rented apartment, exhaustion pressing down on me. I curled up under the thin blanket, tears slipping down my face. Not tears of weakness, but of release. For so long, I had begged for love, for loyalty, for truth. And now, standing on the other side of betrayal, I saw clearly I didn't need his love to define me. I didn't need his daughter's approval to validate me. I had my truth, my dignity, and that was enough. Still, I knew the hardest day was yet to come, the final ruling. It would decide not just property or money, but the end of the story I had once thought would last forever. And deep down, I prayed that when that day came, I wouldn't just win in court. I wanted them to feel it. The weight of their betrayal, the taste of their own poison. The day of the final ruling arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. I woke before dawn, the air heavy in my chest, my hands trembling as I buttoned my blouse. In the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were tired, but there was fire in them now. A fire born from pain, from betrayal, from survival. When I entered the courtroom, the tension was so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin. My husband sat at the defense table, his suit immaculate as always, but his face was pale, drawn tight, his pride crumbling beneath the weeks of evidence. His daughter was there too, her arms crossed, her glare, locked on me like she could burn me alive if she stared hard enough. I didn't flinch. I had already survived their worst. The judge's voice was steady, measured, but each word felt like thunder. He acknowledged the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. He acknowledged my contributions, my sacrifices, the undeniable proof that I had been a partner in every sense of the word. And then came the words I had been waiting for, the ones that shattered the silence. The house, the investments, the assets, they were mine. Gasps echoed through the room. My husband's head dropped into his hands, and for the first time he looked small. His daughter's face twisted in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The smirk she had worn for months was gone, replaced by panic. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply breathed a long, shaking breath that felt like freedom. The weight of years lifted off my chest. As the gavel fell, ending it all, I stood and walked out. I didn't look back. Their world had crumbled not because I destroyed it, but because they tried to destroy me and underestimated what it would cost them. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining warm against my skin. For the first time in months, I felt it, not just the light, but the hope. Claire placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You did it. You took your life back." That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by silence. I thought about the woman who had been thrown out with nothing but a suitcase. The woman who cried herself to sleep, who thought she was worthless, who believed she had lost everything. And I realized she was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who no longer begged for love that came with conditions, someone who knew her worth. My marriage ended in betrayal, but my story didn't. It began again. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever been cast aside, lied to, betrayed by the people you trusted, most know this. You are not powerless. You are not unworthy. Sometimes the worst betrayal is the thing that sets you free. If my story touched you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, Have you ever had to rebuild yourself after betrayal? I'd love to hear your story.